Our man James Ham with us. James
Hammer in the
Ham,
house.
of course, of the Insiders. James Ham, also, of course, of the Kings Beat. James, what the hell happened over this weekend with Sasha Vezenkov? And in fact, that's a question that probably doesn't even matter. It seems, regardless of what report you believe and who broke up with who, Sasha won't be playing for the Sacramento Kings next year.
I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see how this all plays out. Like, look, I think anytime we deal with reporting from overseas, um, it's tough to trace, right? So if everyone remembers 2 years ago, like it was a done deal that Sasha was coming over like 5 times, and then he didn't. So I've always kind of like erred on the side of caution. Uh, it wouldn't like the Kings have no incentive to have a conversation with anyone about this at this point. This is like they're knee deep in draft prep and free agency prep. All this stuff is coming up in the next couple of weeks. I just find it really interesting the two different reports. And like I've had people tell me on social media, hey, the first report isn't that guy's not as reputable as the second report, and that doesn't change my thinking because one report comes out at like 4 o'clock in the morning here by the guy who's allegedly not very reputable, and then the next report comes out at like 5:15. So we're talking about like an hour and 15 minutes later, somebody who knows Sasha came out with a secondary report. So I just think it's always strange when we're trying to decipher what is actually being said and what's actually going to happen, and we'll have to wait and see. That's just kind of how I'm approaching this.
Do you feel like there was there is a disconnect between Sasha, the the coaching staff, the franchise, what he thought he was getting into? Do you think that aspect of it all is true? Like, regardless of who said what or where the sources are coming from, do you think he's not happy with with being here in Sacramento?
Well, I spent a ton of time with Sasha all season long, and look, the guy just wants to play. And I get that. He's a guy who is, won an MVP overseas. He's a guy who is widely considered one of the better players in Europe. And to have him like come to Sacramento and go from, being a superstar overseas to a guy who averaged 12.2 minutes per game over 40 something games. I don't think that that's what he expected at all. But I also, he hadn't really dealt with injuries before, and he not only had like one major catastrophic like grade 3 ankle sprain, but he had like two or three other ankle sprains, including one earlier like in the same game on the opposite leg. So he just went through it a bunch, and he's a guy who's here on his own and probably was pretty lonely throughout the season. But at the end of the day, like, look, he's under contract. And when you sign a 3-year deal, um, like the Kings have his rights. If he wants to go back to Europe, I'm sure they're more than willing to have a conversation with him and see what that would look like, and either void this coming year's salary, or work out some sort of buyout or something. But like, I don't think we'll know if this thing is going to head towards like the dark end until we get a little bit later into the off season. I mean, again, the Kings could trade him, like between now and July 6th, and it like everything could change. We have no idea what's going to happen in the situation. Again, I think it's way too early.
Do you think Mike gave Sasha a legitimate shot here in the league last year?
I think it's a hard question because I don't think that, like, we talked about this coming into training camp, right? We talked about this like at the end of free agency that the Kings had brought in. They have four forwards, and the four forwards don't really like they don't complement each other. They're all like in one way or another. They're pretty similar. Really good shooting, not great defenders. The fact that Keegan Murray stepped up and became better than what anyone expected on the defensive end, I think that helps. But at the same time, like, I don't know what Mike's supposed to do. You have two starters. You have your young guy that you're bringing along, right? That you've put a whole lot of eggs in that basket. You bring a veteran back with a 17, 18, and $19 million deal over the next 3 years. And then you bring Trey Lyles back at a 2-year, $8 million deal. And then, oh, yeah, we have this other guy, Sasha. And again, the problem that I saw was that these guys are all too similar. And where that comes into play is that they don't complement each other. There wasn't a player that Sasha could play with on that front line that could help sort of mask some of his deficiencies as a defensive player. And that's a problem. So I just kind of felt like it was a little bit of a bad mix, but at the same time, I mean, I'm not sure what Mike Brown is supposed to do. I mean, he's got Trey Lyles, who was so good the year before and was one of his leaders on the team. And then he's got Keegan and Harrison Barnes. So I'm not sure that there was really an easy solution here, especially since none of those guys are long, athletic, defensive players that can, help the other guys, help again mask the deficiencies of any of the other guys.
How long was the time that Trey Lyles was out? He didn't start the season. Yeah, because at the very end of the preseason, he hurt his calf. Um, and did that? I guess I could have looked, but did that coincide with was Sasha getting those minutes while Trey was out, or was he still kind of getting DMPs or not getting a lot of tick while Trey Lyles was out?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. The first 13 games of the season is where Lyles got hurt.
Mm.
And he got hurt the last couple of days of training camp. I mean, I think that there was some opportunity for Sasha, but also, like, you got to remember, he's a rookie. He's trying to acclimate to the NBA in the first 13 games of the season. So I'm not even sure that's really all that fair. I would have liked to have seen him get like some pretty substantial playing time along the way, but it just never really popped up. In that first, again, the first 12 games of the season, he played in all but one, and he played quite a bit more. He averaged 14 minutes a game, um, 6 points, almost 2 rebounds a game. Um, so yeah, he did get an opportunity early, but again, as the season went on, I think he just kind of went back uh, to what he knew, what Mike knew, and that is guys like Trey, guys like you needing to steal minutes for Kevin Herter at the three, so you could play Malik Monk more minutes. Like, I don't think it's just one thing that caused this to work out this way. I would again, who knows what's going to happen? The Kings could make a couple of trades here, and guys like Trey Lyles or Harrison Barnes, they could not be on the team, in 2 weeks, and then maybe Sasha does have a spot, and maybe this whole thing kind of works itself out. I just think for right now, it's kind of weird timing.
How you mentioned like potential trades, like how big of a factor is his contract? Like, is it like 6.9 like guaranteed this year? I know there's something with the third year, but that's a pretty attractive number, right? To add to another contract, make salary work, all those different types of things. I just imagine it becomes more difficult if the guy's like, "No, I'm gonna go to Europe. It's cool."
No, I think that this can actually work out. I think he makes right around 6.5, 6.6 this year. And remember, we've talked about this earlier. Under the new CBA, guys like this can be traded for twice as much as their salary, right? So if he's making 6.5 million, that's basically like a $13 million trade value. Like, you can go up to $13 million in return, and you can aggregate that with another player. So I think my point would be, if you take Sasha Vezenkov and you take Chris Duarte and you put them together, that's a $25 million worth of salary that you could take back in return. So I don't believe that it matters all that much. I think where it really would matter is if somebody is trading for Sasha to trade for Sasha, right? As opposed to trading for Sasha to take on a $6.5 million expiring contract. And I'm not sure that at this point that he's proven that he's more than a $6.5 million expiring contract. And I would say the same with Duarte. But you kind of it depends on who's trading for him and what their motivation is. I would even say, like, look, if you were to trade for Sasha Vezenkov and he goes to another team and then he decides to work out a buyout with that team could come away looking much better. You could trade, you could trade and take back up to 25 million bucks worth of salary and then have the guy basically opt out of not only his final year, which is a team option for the final year, but also he could say, "Hey, I want to go back to Europe and I'm willing to like void the final year of my contract." And so you could actually have it work out really well for you as another team who, if you were looking at him as an expiring contract, not a player.
Okay.
It's complicated, right? It always is.
It is. It is. I want to ask the questions though. I want to ask the questions. We radio showing over here. I want to ask the questions. James, are Monty and Mike Brown on the same page as far as building this roster, building this franchise?
Dum dum dum.
It feels like they have two distinct, differences when it comes to the type of players they want to have on this roster and the style of play they want to play. Could be making something out of nothing, but Monty all year has been talking about the offense needs to improve. I remember you, I think last week, talking about how Mike Brown was kind of alluding to things after that comment by Monty came out throughout, in his press conferences, talking about we're working on offense. I don't think they have beef or issues or anything else like that. And I think they have the same direction they want to go in. But are they on the same page as far as building out this roster?
I think that they are, but I also think that like coaches, they get a certain allotment of players, and that's what they got, right? So you can't sit there and complain that you don't have enough players, or your players aren't good enough, and then have a general manager add talent and say, "Well, I added talent," and it's like, okay, you didn't give me the right kind of. I think that there could be a better like this is like fulfillment of a wish list, but I don't always think that that there's an ability to do that. The Kings were able to go out and basically, they got Sasha Vezenkov for basically free, right? They got it as part of a second round pick swap, and then all of a sudden he went from being like a solid European player to like a really, really good European player to an MVP in Europe over like a 2-year period. And so all of a sudden, it's a GM's job to look under every rock, turn over every stone, and try to find talent wherever he can. And I think at the end of the day, that's what they thought they were doing with Sasha. And I just think that there's just a major problem with the design of the players that you had. Like, and you might not know that until you get them on the court and you see how they play. You also might not know that, a guy like JaVale McGee just isn't the shot blocker he once was, isn't the defensive presence he once was. And so you could have gone into that come out of that offseason thinking, okay, well, I can put, JaVale and Sasha on the court together. One spaces the floor and the other one has his back defensively. And then you get into the season, you're like, okay, well, that's not what JaVale is anymore. And that's not going to help Sasha. So there's all these ingredients that you're kind of testing out. And as a coach, you have to you have to give some input and hope that they go out and get you the right types of players. But then once you got those players, you got to sit down and like do the best you can to coach what you have. And at some point you feel like you have redundancy with your players where, one guy where 3 guys do the same thing, but you can only play 2 of them. You have to make a difficult decision. And so I don't think like I wouldn't say they're not on the same path. I would just say that there are certainly some things that could happen here that, were more Mike Brown, and there's certainly some pieces here that Monty could have more input on the basketball side. But I don't know. I think they're fine, and I think that they're gearing up for what's like one of the most important off seasons that we've seen in Sacramento in a long time.
Do you have a follow up? I feel like you're thinking about something.
No,
you just had to look like a James Hammond's full of crap look on your face, and I just wanted to see
Absolutely
if
not.
I.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure because we were. I mean, we didn't even get to this part. We kind of had it like Monty needs a win. Like I don't know what Monty's last win was. Like because you've got Duarte, I guess Sasha. That was kind of a collective. JaVale worked like it for what it was.
But here's the deal, and like I said, we radio showing right now. It feels to me, it goes on Monty's permanent record, but it feels to me JaVale and Chris were Mike Brown calls.
Oh, I don't know about Duarte.
Chris
I don't
feels like a
agree.
Monty guy to me.
Yeah, I don't agree with like JaVale McGee was definitely a Mike Brown thing. But again, a league minimum contract.
But JaVale was never going to make or break.
No.
And I think with Duarte, like, look, when you're trading for a player like that, who had one season under his belt on a bad Indiana Pacers team, and then the next season struggled with ankle injuries the whole year and barely played. You don't really know what you're getting because he's a third-year player, but he's also like a 27-year-old third-year player. He's a top, he's a lottery pick. I think he was the 13th pick in the draft. So to get him for 2 second-round picks or whatever it was, that's like a really, really low risk proposition for Monty McNair. And if you're Monty and you know that your coach would like a little bit more defense, okay, we'll get you a guy who, like, at one point in his career was a good defensive player, and we don't know what he is, but we'll shake it out and see what happens. We'll bring him in and see what happens. And he's played with Sabonis, so he knows where to be and all that stuff. I just think that for whatever reason, like, Duarte wasn't able to pick up on the basic scheme of what was happening, especially on the defensive end. I don't think that, like, he struggled mightily on the defensive end, and his like default setting was just to foul everybody, especially early in the season. I mean, he couldn't stay in a game early in the season, and it just became more and more apparent that you had to stick with what you knew, and then maybe there would come another opportunity where Chris would slide back into the rotation. But then by that point, you had to give Keon Ellis a look because you had some injury issues, and he played extremely well, and he kind of slid up above Duarte in the pecking order. So I don't think that Duarte was a Mike Brown. I mean, it could be that Monty McNair was out looking for guys who he thought would be two-way players that would help Mike, and then you just stumbled upon one that really didn't work out that well.
Well, you mentioned him. I was going to say, does that get classified as a Monty win now, even though it happened a couple of years ago? And I was going to say Keon Ellis, because Keon Ellis became a revelation in the second half of this season. He's not a new player. He was drafted, whatever. But I mean, that's Monty McNair right there, and
Sure.
And he got his opportunity really through injury this past, second half of the season.
So I'll ask you both a question then. So let's stick with that. If it wasn't Duarte at the beginning of the year with Kevin Huerter and Mike Brown, and it was Keon, and let's like, I know Chris got injured, but let's go with Keon stays healthy. Does anyone think the season's different? If Keon Ellis is the guard that Mike goes with instead of Kevin Huerter at the beginning of the season, he was like, "Oh, I was just trying stuff out. I don't know why everyone's all worked up having Chris Duarte start." What if it wasn't Chris Duarte though? It was Keon Ellis. He goes out there, plays the way that he does, and it's like, hey, maybe we got something here.
Yeah, I mean, based on the way he played, absolutely. I think
you think the season's different?
Yeah, absolutely.
James?
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, like, I know it was that strange stat, like Keon started his career like 0-7 or it's 7-0 or
7-0.
8-0. Yeah, as a starter. Yeah, I kind of feel like, sure. But so Keon was undrafted, and not last summer, but the summer before. He's only a second-year player, and this first year he spent on a two-way, and then last year he was a two-way until the midway point in the season. I think that's a huge win for Monty McNair. And I think Keegan Murray is a huge win for Monty McNair, because whether Keegan becomes like the star player that they think what they think he's going to be, which has been since the day that they drafted him, they've had him visions of, really an all-star level player. But even if he doesn't reach that, if he kind of taps out at like 17, 18 points, but a plus defender and a solid rebounder and a great 3-point shooter, if that's where he lands, like, there are a lot of players in the top 5 of the draft that don't work out at all. I mean, I don't know if Jaden Ivey can reach that pinnacle that I just talked about at all, and he's not the only one. I don't know if Jabari Smith Jr. will reach that. Like, that draft in particular is one thing, but, like, through the course of history, I mean, we all remember De'Aaron Fox was the number 5 pick in the draft, but, like, Josh Jackson was number 4. So, like, yeah, Monty McNair hit at least a really solid double with Keegan Murray and maybe even a home run. And we're gonna have to wait and see how how it works out in the end. But yeah, I don't think Monty has he does need another win or two. But I also think that he's had some really, really nice, solid additions to this roster.
Yeah, 2 things. Jaden Ivey's going to be just fine. He's still going to be a very, very good basketball player. 2, I wasn't trying to discard Monty McNair's entire tenure with Sacramento.
No, your
No.
your question was perfectly fine. You said, "When
Yeah,
was the last one?"
Yeah, I
And
agree. Yeah.
in about a year.
Yeah, I feel like you could point all of those out, and then if I was being a jerk, which I'm not trying to be, I'll also point out like Glenn Robinson. That was Monty McNair. I'll point out the great Hassan Whiteside. That was Monty McNair also. Again,
was a bidding war.
There's context to that. That's extremely important. And it was like Monty McNair had been a general manager for like an hour and a half before he had to start steining guys, and that's who it wound up being. But I'm more looking like, all right, kind of, you really like to let these trade deadlines come and go, and free agency wasn't super active last year, so there's, you've got fans looking around at the likes of Kyle Kuzma or Zach LaVine, and whether that's realistic or not, I don't know. We're all watching Malik Monk, and there's a lot there.
No, I think so too, and I think you can, like someone brings up Mitchell at number 9. Like, look, I don't know that's going to end up being. Well, I mean, it's already hasn't ended up being like a phenomenal pick. Like he's still on the roster, he's still in the rotation, but he was in and out of the rotation this year, and he may or may not be part of the plan moving forward. And you can also look at sort of the Dante DiVincenzo situation and how that didn't work out. How
that really just comes across weird at this point.
Oh, it was weird.
The whole thing with Dante is weird.
No, it was.
But the and if we're doing, because I understood your original question was like, when was the last one he had, right? And you got to go back a little while. But if we're gonna dissect the whole thing, like, what is Kevin Huerter? Is he considered a win or a loss? You know what I mean? Because what he did in that first year is a win by a landslide. But now you look at where he's at. I look at him as a win.
Yeah, it's also, what do you believe? Was Kevin Huerter is Kevin Huerter last year, minus the injury, of course. Is that Kevin Huerter? Or, it's the old, is that Dave Hebner? Or is that Dave Hebner? Is that Kevin Huerter last year? Or is Kevin Huerter the Warriors playoff year? Is that Kevin Huerter? Like, which one is it?
Yeah, I think,
and I think that dictates whether you think it's a win or a loss, because either he got lucky and lightning in a bottle, and this is who he is, and this is who you're stuck with, or he had a down year and you expect him to be closer to what he was the year before.
I think it's tough, like with Kevin, and Kevin was the first one to point it out.
I give him a win for that too.
I think it's TBD, to be honest. He talked about it in his postseason like exit interview. Kevin did that. He had the best season of his career the year before, and then he had like a substantial fall off. He knew he wasn't nearly as efficient or anything else as he was a year before. And he said he's going to try to get back to being the player he was before. If he's the player that comes in 14, 15 points, shoots 40% from 3, draws a bunch of attention, I think he can totally rehab who he is and all that stuff. But I want to see, number one, do the Kings keep him this offseason? or do they move on from him? And what do you get in return? I want to see, too, what happens with that draft pick and how badly does that hurt you? Because that's still up in the air. We still don't know what that is. It could either be next year or it could be the year after. And if you don't make the playoffs the next 2 years, it dissolves into 2 second-round picks. So, again, that's something where you're trying to gauge the value of what you got for that player. So I kind of want to give it more time before I say it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you would have asked me last season, I would have thought it was like an easy win. But you ask me after that, after the season we just went through, and no, I don't think it is. I mean, he didn't play up to the standard of a player that you traded a first round pick for. And that's tough. But I'm still going to give him that little bit of time. And I want to know if you're able to go get something else this offseason using Kevin Huerter as a trade chip, or if you don't, if he's able to rehab himself and come back and have a really strong season. I think 2 years of one that was great and one that was not great. We kind of need a little bit more before we make that determination.
Okay, we're fixing the Kings. That's what we do. We'll come back. More with James Ham here on D'Lo and KC, brought to you by Sky River Casino and Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320. That's fun stuff.
Hey, did Leezy get victored?
Leezy got victored. Yeah, we found Leezy. I found Leezy.
Victored. Oh man.
Yeah, we got Leezy. He's safe. Leezy's safe and sound.
What happened there?
Leezy's safe and sound.
I saw him get banned at one point.
Yeah, that damn happy ass Leezy.
Oh no, poor Leezy.
Nah, whoever the other jackass was in here going at Stephen Brown and Aldrin and everybody. It's like, sir, who are you? Is this your first day? Get your ass out of here.
Fall back or fall back.
But yeah, old Leezy.
Did you guys? This isn't funny because this would suck. I don't want this to happen. Did you see Buster Only got hacked?
Oh no.
Oh, is that what that was?
Shohei Ohtani has been banned for life from MLB in connection to charges with gambling. His trial is on August 28th. It is speculated he could get life in prison.
Did you see? Yeah, the New York Mets are finalizing a deal that will send Francisco Lindor to the Oakland Athletics. Sources tell ESPN. Boy, there's a bunch of them.
Does he work for you? Yeah, he does.
He does.
Yeah, he does. Poor Buster.
Jesus. Wow. That's funny.
I'm upset James didn't go to Instagram to like my picture. Oh no. Did you see this? Oh, that's terrible.
What is that?
That's not even any Photoshop on Sean. That's what he looks like right now.
Did you? I think that's the. Oh man, did I? Did you
see the video with him and Sexy Red? And
no, well, I saw that. That's hilarious. But there was a Facebook post that a girl, I don't know if this was old or what, but it was a Facebook post of a lady who had a picture of Sean from like the Sunny Days type era.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, why can't I find a man like this? And then Shawn Michaels was like, he responds, he goes, hey. And she goes, no. And he goes, I'm literally the guy in the picture.
That's funny.
That's not awkward.
That's hilarious. I got to go see Bad Boys, man. That's getting a lot of love.
I don't know when I'm gonna go see that one. I don't know if it's gonna happen. Yeah,
James doesn't even get on Instagram, so he doesn't know who we spent part of the weekend with.
Nope. No, I don't.
See? The things you miss out on by not logging into James Ham _NBA.
James said never.
Who was it? Who? Matt was like, "Yeah, I got to get better with Instagram." So I added Matt as a collaborator on that picture we took. So me, you, Matt, and
Doing
Kevin.
numbers. I'm crazy.
And it's like the night's going by. Hey, can I get in the Discord? So I'm sending Matt. I was like, Matt, open Instagram, go to the messages. You've got a message from me. Click the accept button. He's like, okay, done. I was like, great. Now you're added as a collaborator on the picture. Got to get Matt and James up on their social media game.
We'll get there.
Wild.
I believe in them.
I was told one time when I was at NBC by a social media specialist, hey, you're really good at Twitter. Just stick with that and don't worry about the other stuff.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm better at Instagram.
He's like, whatever you're good at, do that. And then if we can add some other stuff, we will, but don't get too caught up in it. Like, all right.
Yeah, I completely understand that.
Did you see some of the updates for the iPhone?
I haven't. I know that was today, right?
Yeah, I just saw a couple.
I think a lot of it is AI, isn't it?
I don't know. I just saw what they're doing with the text messages, which is some cool stuff.
Which is what?
Like, for instance, the quick response. The double tap quick response.
Mm-hmm.
You can now use like any emoji you want, as opposed to the like 5 responses they have.
Huh.
So little stuff like that.
There'll be a lot of middle fingers flying. James Ham, I'm going to Cabo in July. Middle finger.
All you get is this.
That is the custom James response is the thumbs up.
Yeah, the yellow Simpsons thumbs up.
Yep.
How'd you invite?
We're coming back, Emery. That is very much for the radio audience a window into life. Texting James Ham is the 9.5 times out of 10 you're just going to get a thumbs up response, and that's going to be your entire interaction with James through text messages
or emojis. Well, like the videos. No, the little.
Well, you send some gifts. Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
And I'm usually on point with those.
Well, they're good. Yeah, you killed Kenny a couple of days ago, I think, in the gift.
That's funny.
Yeah,
lots of thumbs up from James. That's
the customary response.
You could put thumbs up on Instagram comments.
Oh,
well, James sticks to Twitter.
I'm just saying, like I'm trying to get our guy James, on his IG.
See, IG can be for the personal. This could be to get to know James Ham, the other guy.
Well, that's what I've used it for the most part. Like on occasion, I put King stuff up there. But
one of my favorite things ever was James post. You're going on a vacation, post some pictures. So James took like all of the pictures he took and made a collage and just posted one picture. I was like, Here it is, guys. Here's my vacation picture. Fedora Ham out here on the cruise.
That's right.
See, I had a nice hat on this weekend, James. If you had Instagram, if you looked at Instagram, you would have seen it.
No, I have to look.
Well, you look after the show. I don't want you to have a.
Oh no, I can multitask. Go ahead.
I want you to have a random response.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. Okay, I got it.
See, all right. James is in on the bit now. James.
I'm in on the bit now. Yeah.
All right. I feel like we've worked through most of the Sasha stuff. We just kind of went back and forth on whether like he really had a chance here. I was curious though, James, what a second season for Sasha Vezenkov would have looked like for Sacramento. What it would look like for him. I can't say like I'm broken up if this news turns out to be true and he winds up either playing elsewhere or just going back to Europe. But I was curious. I wanted to see what it would look like.
Yeah, I don't hate it either. Like, first of all, he's such a smart basketball player. And like the guy just magically shows up underneath the basket all alone all the time, and people throw the ball to him for little layups. I thought he was a better rebounder than advertised. I thought there were moments where he was a better defender than what we thought. I was here for the Sasha experience. Plus, I think he's a good dude. Like I hung out with him quite a few times. I talked to him quite a few times. He's one of the few guys who are in the locker room all season long. And I just think he's a good guy that realistically he's in a little over his head. Like he doesn't have it's one thing to come over as like a 20-year-old from Europe, and maybe your parents come over, or maybe somebody comes with you, right? And you're learning the language and all that stuff, but you're acclimating and you're around a bunch of 20-year-olds. It's a whole other thing when you're like a seasoned veteran who has had massive success, and you come over and it's almost like, well, like, what are you here? Like, because you're not famous here. You're not that guy that we saw playing in Europe. You're here in our game now. And, I think the Kings are like a welcoming group. And I think he built friendships and stuff like that. But at the same time, that's a lonely world. Like you can build friendships when you're on the road and when you're at practice and all that stuff. But once you go home from practice, like an empty apartment is an empty apartment. And so I think it got a little of that got to him. And then the injuries, once he got hurt, I think he had never gone through that either. And so when you mix already being homesick with homesick and you're not able to play, you're not able to hang out, you're not being able to, do all the things that you would typically do, I think it wore on him pretty heavily. And so I would like to see what he looks like in a year or two, but I wouldn't like that with the same mix of players around him. I don't think it's fair to him. Just like I tell you guys all the time, like Domantas Sabonis is one of the most like dominant players in the NBA, and people keep asking like, why can't he block shots better? Why can't he be better at this or that? It's like, how about you just get the players around him that support those areas, like build the team around him that get him a shot blocker or two that plays the 3 and the 4, get him more spacing, get him another creator on the court. Those things can help him, and I feel the same way about you know again, like the combination of Herter and Barnes. I think it worked for 1 year, but in year two, like I don't think defensively they were able to hold up together as a combo. And with Sasha, like, who is he supposed to play with? Like, if it's him and Trey Lyles on the front line together, that's not great. If you slide him over to the small forward position, I don't think that worked. I think that he needed, like, if you had a Jeremy Grant and you can run him and Sasha together on a front line with Sabonis or some other like athletic player at the 5, then maybe you're on to something. But just, I think the mix of players and everything else, it's gonna be really difficult for him moving forward here if it's run it back 3.0.
Hmm.
Do you
It's a
do
dreadful thought.
run it back 3.0?
I don't love that idea. I
Yeah.
know how you. I don't love that.
Yeah, I don't love
I
it.
know you don't,
Yeah.
but no.
I'm a little more accepting of it than others if
Mm.
it happens.
Hmm.
When you talk about like Sasha not wanting to be here and maybe it didn't work with the Kings and all this other stuff, I mean, what are the possibilities, not just like salary cap wise, but just realistically, like, all right, you don't want to be here, you don't have to retire. Like, we'll trade you, we'll put you in a trade. Like, why why do you think some of the reports went to he's just gonna go back? Like, why wasn't it like maybe requested a trade or wants to part ways or something like that?
Well, I think both of the reports left the opportunity for him to stay in the NBA like up for grabs. I just like it's not gonna be easy. Like there aren't a bunch of situations that are just gonna be way better for him. And that's part of the problem. You need to find the right situations for him. And I think that goes with most players in the NBA, but like specifically, I mean, he's almost 29 years old. Like he's kind of like getting this started really late. And at the same time, he's kind of wasting his time, like his prime on a NBA bench when he could be a star in Europe. If you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying like this is just like a horrible idea for him and he shouldn't have come over. What I'm saying is that like if you're sitting here and you're Sasha and you're like, okay, like best case scenario, I might be like an eighth or ninth man on some other team. Do I want that, or do I want to go back to Europe and maybe as a 29-year-old, 30-year-old, 31-year-old have an opportunity to win an MVP again. And if I'm him, I wouldn't want to waste more of my time with this experience if you don't think it's going to yield like something much better for you outside of monetary value, because he gets paid way more here than he does in Europe. Um, but I definitely, if I'm him, I would like to get back and start my career up again where I found massive success, as opposed to like wait this thing out. But again, I'm not saying he's leaving. I'm not saying that like this thing is over, and I'm not convinced that he won't be on the Kings next year. We don't have enough information right now to say any of that stuff. And so again, I think like the tweets that we saw, they're pretty presumptive, and they also didn't capture the nuances of anything that is the NBA as far as salary cap and as far as like what this means for him if he tries to go back to Europe. He needs compliance from the Kings to go back and play in Europe, just like the Kings needed compliance from him and to get him out of his contract in Europe to come over. It's kind of the same thing. So I would like to see how this thing plays out a little bit further.
I'm just talking to Kenny James. Hang on a second. You know what? I think James got a text when those reports went out and said that's all BS. Don't believe any of that. Like he's talking with such authority on this subject. I feel like James knows something.
I mean, he's
not-
connected. I mean, that's
is
why John in
connected.
Connecticut listens to him.
That-
and
that's
not
why
us.
that's why he doesn't
Yeah.
text Odilo and KC. He
Yeah.
texts James Ham. Okay, back with James Ham. James, you get to ignore all of that stuff.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
That's why he's not the insider for no reason. In all fun, of course. Do you, depending on the report you believe, whether you believe either of the reports, you think the Kings have their eye on something else already? Like if like, hey, we'll work out something with Sasha. Do you think they got something on the horizon?
I would hope so. I would hope so, because look, like I mentioned this before. I talked about it with Kyle earlier. You can't sign a free agent. You can't start negotiating with a free agent of your own free agent, until the day after the finals, right? The finals end, whether it's in 4 or
I
whether
don't
it's in
think I knew
7.
that actually.
You can start negotiating with your own free agent on day 1. The Kings, from what I know, like Malik Monk knows that if he wants to come back to Sacramento, it's on a 4-year, $78 million deal. And I'm sure there's an option after year 2. Like he knows exactly what he's getting in Sacramento. And like I have it on good authority. Like the Kings can't negotiate with him right now, but like there's an understanding that he is going to get whatever the max they could pay him if he comes back, right? Well, the day after the finals end, you can start negotiating that contract. He can't negotiate with anyone else, just you. And so you have this window. The reason I bring this up is that doesn't mean that right now, today, as we speak, the Kings can't be on the phone with every team in the league trying to trade people. So there's always communication, especially like right now. You have players that are under contract. You can go negotiate a trade with another NBA team today. Like they could have a deal already worked out for the number 13 pick and the 2027 and 29 and 31 pick and salary filler for player X. They can already have that deal worked out. And then just when we get closer past the finals, closer to the NBA draft or closer to free agency, that you announce a trade that you've already been working on. So like that's where I don't think we know what exactly is transpired here, because it's possible that Sasha's already been told that like, hey, we're working on a deal to send you somewhere else. And that's totally possible. And it's feasible because I mean he's like, for better lack of better terms, he's like their property as an NBA player at this point. So they can like negotiate trades with him. Um, and so maybe there is something brewing. Maybe that's what we're kind of seeing, is sort of this spill out in a different way. But I don't know. Like, I don't like contradictory reports an hour apart in Europe, because I like my experience is that they don't always prove out. And not only that, but they also a lot of times they don't understand the nuances of NBA, CBA, like contractual things, because European just for sake of argument, so you guys understand, like European soccer, if you're a player on a team and you don't want to play for that team anymore and you want to play for a different team, that team can come to you and give you an offer and work out like an entire salary for the next year. And then they have to go to your team and work out like a buyout. So they can, that's a transfer fee. That's what you hear, transfer fees in soccer. So again, like European sports in general, the way they handle contractual stuff is totally different than here. So there's possibilities that something here is already in place, but there's also a possibility that somebody's a little lost in translation on what the NBA like salary cap looks like and what it means for a player like Sasha.
I thought that was a pretty good question that I was trying to think through, and I'm not sure. Hopefully, you got the answer for by in the Matthews Mattress Chatty House by Shortcake 182, who asked, "In what circumstances can we not discuss trades?" Talking about like the Kings, like when they got in trouble regarding the bogey trade. And I think I'm trying to figure that out. Like,
I don't
how
think
that
they
went
got
out.
in trouble. I think the Bucks got in
Well,
trouble.
that's what wasn't bogey. Or that was a sign and trade, and he was a free agent. So isn't that why that was like a tampering? That was a tampering situation, not discussing the trade, right?
Yeah, it was a little different. So, if I'm not mistaken, it's before they inserted the rule that you could negotiate with your own free agent before the free agency window opened. So this whole thing where you can negotiate with your own free agent, it's only a couple of years old. It just got put in, and it might have even been last year where they put this in. So what happened in that situation is the Kings had allegedly like had a conversation with Bogdanovich about his salary demands, and again, the Kings could have had that conversation before the season ended because you're allowed to have those conversations during the season. Like, hey, what's it going to take to keep you this summer, right? Like, let's just talk. Let's just put the number on the table. The Kings actually had a right with him at that point to extend him. They could have actually. I'm gonna have to go back and remember that one fully. But the problem what they had there is you can't sign and trade a player for other players to another team when you're not allowed to negotiate that contract already.
Mm.
Got me? So there technically can't be an agreement in place for the Kings to sign Bogdanovich at that point
Mhm.
and then to trade him because that contract would have to have been basically negotiated by the Bucks. Yeah, that became like a really, really weird situation and a lot of finger pointing and a lot of whose fault was this type deal. That deal should have never leaked out. It leaked out 2 days before the draft and blew up the whole thing. And then right at the last second, the Kings had to redo everything, like their entire plan going forward, and then they end up losing Bogdanovich in that when he gets the Atlanta like offer sheet, they ended
And
up declining.
the Bucks are the only team that got punished out of that, right? Sacramento didn't get punished for that.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, because because Bogdanovich was a restricted free agent and still basically under the Kings umbrella,
Mhm.
they could actually negotiate with him. The Bucks were not allowed to negotiate with him beforehand, and they certainly weren't able to work out a full-fledged trade beforehand, although they could have. They just didn't need to have it be announced. If that wouldn't have got
You mean
announced.
leaking stuff to the media can prove detrimental to your ultimate goal?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Who would have known?
Yeah.
Shout out Dan Hurley.
Yeah, there you go. That
Dude.
got weird, didn't it?
Yes. That absolutely got weird. That is DeAndre Jordan levels of free agency weird. Like that was odd.
I agree.
And now like so what happens when like JJ's phone rings or like James Borrega's phone rings and it's Rob in Los Angeles on the line?
You gonna hit him with the big boy. Oh, I know that ain't who I think it is.
Oh.
I know that ain't who I think it is calling me.
I hope you calling to offer 6 years, $70 million. That's my first line if I'm either one of those coaches.
Mhm.
The money's out there
I
now.
think it is
6 years, $70 million. Like, let me know if it's me or if it's, I'm JJ. Let me know if it's me or if it's James Borrega, because I'm ready to sign for 6 years, $70 million, because that's the contract to be the Lakers head coach.
And then I would say, where are your 2 national championships?
Yeah.
Sir, I went to Duke. We don't need national championships.
Okay, I guess I'm about to offer you 2.
Well, good luck finding a national championship coach to come here, pal.
Don't thank me. Don't good luck me. I'll talk to you later, JJ.
Whatever, ho. I'm calling the NBA Finals. I'm gonna see more NBA Finals over the rest of my career than you will, Rob.
Wild.
Boy, our little role playing is evolved into like one of us is gonna quit.
Always within the second back and forth every time.
The real Kenny Caraway never escalates, but if Kenny Caraway's playing a role, man, it goes south quick. Man,
I just love it when you call him a hoe. That's where you.
Well, I wasn't calling Kenny a hoe. I was calling Rob Pelinka on behalf of JJ Redick. That's certainly what I would say. I'm gonna see more NBA Finals than your ass is moving forward.
Oh man, but yeah, price has gone up.
But yeah,
price has gone up.
That's an awkward call to make. Hey guys.
Well, it's very awkward. Well, maybe not as awkward because it's only gonna be their first meeting with each other.
Well, yeah. It keeps getting worse, man. The insider wars are funny because right now it feels like everyone's losing.
Yeah.
Even though Woj didn't lose, Woj was right, but it was the second tweet today that was like, wait a minute. JJ hasn't interviewed with the Lakers yet?
Come on, Woj.
Meanwhile, Shams is reporting he's not only has he interviewed, but he interviewed in person for a lengthy period of time. So it's like, yo, what the hell is this?
It's wild. People are asking if I've been watching Clipped.
Come on, James.
I've watched about half of the first episode. Okay, first of all, the acting is ridiculous.
It's amazing.
Not only that, but the choices that they made for actors is spectacular. I mean, watching the Donald Sterling dragging Blake Griffin around by the hand thing is just weird.
Yep.
Like the whole thing is weird. I don't know what's happening. Like, why is he holding his hand? Why is he allowing him to hold his hand? Like, I'm sitting here, did this really happen? Is this wow?
Hey,
if I'm Blake, I'm suing everybody. I'm like, first of all, that guy looks nothing like me.
Well, that's where the suit comes from.
By the way, what day does Clip come on?
I think it's today.
It's Monday.
I think so. Isn't Clip tonight? I think Clip is tonight.
New episode. Come on, man. I need that.
If it's not tonight, it's tomorrow. But I think it's tonight.
Well, the 4th was a Tuesday, so maybe it's every Tuesday.
Oh, well, that sucks. It's Tuesdays. No. Well, it could be 9 o'clock our time. 9 o'clock.
There you go. 9:01. There it is.
Yeah, let's go, baby. Come on, James. You got time to catch up. It's just another episode.
So hard.
And a half.
It's so hard.
It's good, James. It's good, James. It's worth it. We want a full recap tomorrow on the Insiders.